Wow, Godzilla vs. Kong, the monster battle of the century, is finally here. This film has had many delays for many reasons, including a worldwide pandemic, but it's here, and I've been waiting for this rematch ever since I saw the original Kong vs. Godzilla. Now, I love the original, but you gotta admit, the effects weren't really up to par, even back then, especially Kong, who looks like roadkill in that movie, but it's funny. I mean, that's a movie you watch with a very specific kind of appeal. It's cheesy, it's comedic, it's great fun. But I always wondered what it would look like with updated effects and more high-end action. It's one of few times I ever asked for a remake. I mean, it's been long enough. The original was 1962. Imagine what a 70s version or an 80s version would have looked like, especially in the 90s when Godzilla rematched Ghidorah, Mothra, and Mechagodzilla, and then again in the 2000s. Like, when's he ever going to fight Kong again? It's a no-brainer. And now, boom, it's no longer hypothetical. Of course, this is part of Legendary's MonsterVerse, the second Kong installment and the third Godzilla. Now, if you remember, I had a certain complaint with the first two Godzillas in the series. The monsters only fight at night and usually in the rain. So I made a big stink about it, hoping they'd actually fight in the day this time. And, oh yes, the forecast is looking good this time. Now, the main battle between Kong and Godzilla is still at night, but there's no rain, and the majority of the various monster battles that take place in this film are in the daytime. So, my wish has been answered. They fight in the day. They fight in the day! Here comes the sun. Okay, so I approve. We're done. Bye. All right, okay, I'll talk a little bit more here. In short, you come to a movie like this for the monster fights, and it delivers. In fact, it over-delivers, because the real title is actually Godzilla vs. Kong vs. blank. You probably know who the other monster is, but if you don't, just watch it, because it's more fun that way. It's mostly a Kong movie. He is the monster star, and he's such a lovable character who we all know. If you think back to the original Kong from 1933, he was actually the first main character in a feature film to not be played by a human actor, who was entirely a special effect. And after all these decades, he's still just as charismatic. So making Kong the star, you can't go wrong. Godzilla's more of the villain, which he always does best. But that's a little complaint. Like, maybe we could have used a little more Godzilla in this movie. It borrows from many past monster films. At times it'll remind you of Kong Escapes, where he's used as a tool to find a substance called Element X. But here, it's an energy that lies inside what they call Hollow Earth. With Kong strapped onto an aircraft carrier and carried by helicopters, it'll remind you of the original Kong vs. Godzilla, and sometimes a little of Kong 76, too. It also has the classic mad scientist cliché who creates, well, you'll see, and has a group of conspiracy theorists sneaking into a base to find, well, you'll see. So it's kind of like the Area 51 cliché. It brings all these familiar elements together. So if you're looking for something completely fresh and different, that's not what this is. It sticks to the genre, it's for the fans, and gives you what you want. What you want is the monster fights, and like I said, it delivers. My favorite moments are when Kong and Godzilla use their faces to intimidate each other. There's one priceless moment where they get up in each other's faces, and you'll know it when you see it. It just made me laugh. It's cool when the monsters have personalities like that. The human characters, like always, are the focus to get the story going. Without it, you wouldn't have the proper build-up to all the monster battles. And the actors all do a fine job, but the characters and the writing aren't really that interesting, which is expected. The one that stands out to me was Gia, who's a young child who communicates with Kong via sign language. I think it's a charming relationship. But yeah, it's tricky in these movies to have great human characters who you're going to remember. So as long as you don't have high expectations or are hoping for, I don't know, some Oscar-winning material, then you'll find yourself satisfied. In other words, it's a pass. Could have been better with the characters, but no major complaint. The visuals are great, but God damn, they went overboard with the neon. I still like it, it looks cool, but it's definitely going with that Pacific Rim idea where everything's always glowing. I mean, at times it even looks like Tron, where everything is bathed in neon glow and laser-like tubes of colored lights everywhere. I don't mind it, but I really hope that this doesn't become a trend because it's going to get old fast. The most outlandish thing the plot does is have a literal MonsterVerse in it. Yeah, it's like some crazy universe of monsters that exists underneath Antarctica, and it's neat. It's definitely not trying to ground itself in reality here. It's just aiming for crazy, far-out shit that's totally in tune with the Godzilla franchise. For Kong, it's a little weird, but with Godzilla, yeah, it works. A big thing I liked about it was the runtime. It's under 2 hours. Yes, thank you. Unlike Batman vs. Superman, just to name one example, like you don't need these 2.5 hour movies all the time, or like 3 hours. Like you don't need that. Not all the time. So I really appreciate that Godzilla vs. Kong didn't overstay its welcome. It felt fast-paced and entertaining all the way. Adam Wingard, the director, did a good job and seems to have made this from a fan's perspective. You know, weird thing, he actually offered me a cameo 3 years back, but my second daughter was about to be born and I had major priorities there. And I'm happy to be detached from the film to be able to sit back and view it the same as I would with any other monster film. I've spoken to Adam quite a bit before he got wrapped up in this project, which I hope was a dream more than a nightmare, as I know many film projects can be. Now that he's done with that, all I want to say is, hey Adam, how about that nerd episode? So it was also really cool seeing this on HBO Max from home. I do miss theaters and I hope they're able to stay in business, especially the local ones. But I'm just glad they were able to find a way to bring this into the house. It made a huge difference. It was super convenient for me. I drink a lot of coffee, so pausing to use the bathroom, that's key. So what would I like to see in future MonsterVerse films? Well, there is something that's missing, which I don't think really applies to these films because these movies are really just meant to be fun. But if you go back to the original Godzilla from 1954, it was a serious movie, and I'd really like to see something like that, similar to what they did with Shin Godzilla. I want to see more scenes like that where the monster is rampaging through the city and just seeing those structures fall and people panicking, news reports. And even though buildings are destroyed in Godzilla vs. Kong, we don't give a moment's thought to any of the damage. I'd like just one more of these where it's like we're witnessing a disaster take place while suspending our disbelief of a giant monster. They tried it a little in Godzilla 2014 where they showed the damage, but they kept cutting away from the damage being done. Anyway, this is a different thing. It might be better suited to a solo monster appearance and not a big versus movie. This one is just meant for fun, and fun it is.